My name is Claire Holloway, and I was only 14 when my life changed completely. Not gradually, not with warnings. It happened all at once, so quietly it almost felt deliberate. One day, I still belonged to my family. The next, I was something easily stepped around. If I had to pinpoint the moment my family decided I didn't require much attention, it wouldn't be loud or dramatic. It would be a piece of paper stuck to the refrigerator. Out of town. Back soon. You'll be fine. No names, no dates. Just my mother's neat handwriting, careful and polite, like kindness without the effort. They left for a work conference out west the morning of my birthday. My older sister, Rachel, posted a photo online of herself, rolling a designer suitcase through an airport terminal, smiling like this trip was a reward. My younger sister, Maya, followed with a picture of clouds through an airplane window and a caption full of sparkles. I sat on the front steps with my backpack pressed against my legs, telling myself this couldn't be what it looked like. Someone would come by. Someone always did. An aunt. A neighbor. Nothing happened. The porch light switched on automatically as the sky darkened, and a dog across the street barked at me like I was somewhere I didn't belong. That first night, I microwaved a frozen burrito I hated and ate it over the sink, pretending the steady hum of the appliance counted as company. On day 2, I kept saying there must have been a mistake. By day 4, a sharper thought started forming, quiet but persistent. Maybe this was intentional. Being the middle child had always meant living in the margins. Rachel was achievements and applause. Maya was costumes, parties, and carefully planned celebrations. I was easy, which adults say when they don't feel like paying close attention. But being overlooked is one thing. Being left behind on purpose is something else entirely. 6 days later, I walked out of the public library, carrying a stack of books so tall I had to tilt my head just to see the sidewalk. The heat bent the air until everything shimmered. That's when a dark sedan eased to the curb beside me. The window lowered smoothly, controlled, deliberate. "Claire?" The voice sounded surprised. It was Uncle Thomas, the successful one who stopped coming to family holidays when I was still young enough to count birthdays on my fingers. My mother used to call him distant. I would eventually understand she meant he didn't tolerate disorder. His eyes took everything in without comment. The backpack. The careful smile I wore when I didn't feel safe. "Why are you out here alone?" he asked. "Where are your parents?" "They're out of state," I said. The words felt thin the moment they left my mouth. "And you stayed," he said quietly. Whatever followed sounded like something I wasn't meant to hear. Then he looked at me and said, "Get in the car. You're not walking anywhere tonight." Every warning I'd ever been given about strangers tried to surface, but my stomach, empty after nights of noodles and dry cereal, had a louder opinion. Hunger has a way of simplifying decisions. The car smelled like leather and something clean and unfamiliar. Not cologne, just money that moved often and didn't linger. He drove me to a diner with cracked booths and desserts sealed under foggy glass. When the food arrived, I stared at it longer than necessary, half expecting it to disappear. He didn't rush me. He let me eat first. Only then did he ask questions. School, friends, what I cared about. "History," I said. Mostly the parts people rewrite once they think they've won. That earned a small, thoughtful smile. When we reached my street, he didn't turn off the engine. He just said, "Go inside and pack a bag." I blinked at him. "Why?" "Because," he said evenly, "you're not spending another night alone in a dark house while the adults who should know better are gone. Pack, Claire." Some moments don't announce themselves as important. They just shift something quietly, like the world opening on a hinge you didn't know was there. His house felt unreal the second I stepped inside, like I'd crossed into a different climate. The guest room was too neat, too calm. The bed looked untouched, the kind of soft you hesitate to test. I sat carefully on the edge, barely letting my weight settle, afraid I might wrinkle something expensive without meaning to. He leaned against the doorway, watching me like he was trying to figure out if I planned to sleep sitting straight up all night. I told him, barely louder than a breath, that I didn't want to mess up the sheets. "They're washable," he said, smiling just enough to be kind, but not amused. "Things are meant to be used, not tiptoed around." Morning arrived with sunlight and a glass of orange juice poured into real glassware. Back home, our cups were souvenirs from road trips, thin plastic that still smelled faintly like heat and soap. I held the glass carefully, like it might crack if I made the wrong move. "It's juice," he said dryly. "Not a contract. Drink." Later that week, when my teacher asked who would be coming to the parent meeting, he didn't hesitate. "I will." 2 words. Calm. Certain. They loosened something inside me that had been pulled tight for months. I didn't understand generosity. I didn't trust it. When he bought me jeans and a sweater, I hid the tags, sure he'd regret it and want them back. When he gave me money for lunch, I tucked it away and ate crackers instead. Spending felt like crossing a line I wasn't sure I was allowed to cross. 12 days passed before he found me in the kitchen just after midnight, crouched on the floor with a cereal box balanced on my knees. He stopped in the doorway and raised an eyebrow. "What's going on here?" I told him I didn't want to take too much. Without saying anything else, he opened the fridge, scooped leftover pasta into a bowl, heated it, and set it in front of me. "If it's in this house," he said evenly, "it belongs to everyone who lives here. That includes you." I nodded and focused hard on swallowing, determined not to let tears drop into the food. Crying felt excessive, like I'd owe something afterward. I kept expecting my parents to show up unannounced, the front door rattling as they demanded I come home like something checked out too long. But the days kept moving forward. Then, weeks. No calls, no knocking. Rachel filled her feed with beach photos and captions about forever bonds. Maya posed with seashells pressed to her cheek. My name never appeared anywhere. Uncle Thomas came with me to the school meeting, where the counselor perched on a metal chair and used words like quiet, potential, and underengaged. He didn't interrupt or defend me. He wrote things down. Afterward, he bought me a desk so I wouldn't have to work on the floor anymore. Then came an eye exam I didn't know I needed, a dentist appointment, a doctor visit, haircut. The small, ordinary care I hadn't realized was supposed to be ordinary. He never framed it as a favor. He called it maintenance, like I was something worth keeping functional. At 14, I still tested boundaries. One Saturday, I stayed out too late with a friend, forgetting to text because I didn't know what counted as late anymore. When I slipped inside close to midnight, bracing myself for anger, he handed me a sandwich. "Glad you're alive," he said. "Next time, text. Otherwise, I'll assume you're in a ditch and go buy a shovel." His voice stayed even. No yelling, no lecture, just concern with edges. It sounded like care, but organized. Sometimes he brought me to his office and told me to watch how people spoke to each other. "Half of success is tone and a handshake," he said once, gripping a client's hand. "The rest is showing up when other people decide not to." He said it lightly, like it was nothing, but I carried it with me anyway, like directions. That first holiday in his house, I expected something small, a polite card, a brief smile, nothing that required staying. Instead of a card and a polite smile, he handed me a journal. It was leather-bound, heavy in a way that felt deliberate, with my initials pressed into the cover in small gold letters. "Write down what you notice," he said. "The important things, and the silly ones. Especially those." I ran my fingers over the texture, half expecting it to feel temporary somehow, like it might vanish if I got too attached. "Thank you," I said, though it came out stiff and unsure. I wasn't used to owning things that were meant to last. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A photo filled the screen. My parents, Rachel and Maya, all in matching pajamas, posed beside a perfect tree. The caption talked about tradition, togetherness, no tag, no message, not even a miss you tucked in at the end. I stared at it until the image blurred into color and light. Then I looked down at the journal resting on my lap and opened it to the first blank page. I wrote, "Things here are meant to be used, not feared." Then, "If something is inside this house, it belongs to everyone who lives in it." After a pause, I added, "I live here." The words felt bold, borrowed, like I'd written them with someone else's spine. Still, when I closed the cover and traced my initials again, something unfamiliar stirred. Not safety, not yet. But the rough outline of it, sketched in lightly, like pencil marks you could erase if you had to. I didn't know then that the diner booth and that small book were hinges, quiet ones, that would eventually swing my entire life open. Years later, in rooms that smelled like leather and paper and consequence, those pages would steady me when others lost their footing. But for now, I was 14, curled into sheets that smelled clean instead of tired, learning a single impossible truth. I wasn't disposable. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd just been misplaced, and someone had finally noticed and set me down where I belonged. By the time I turned 15, Uncle Thomas had formed two opinions about me. First, my posture was terrible. Second, underneath the slouch, there was potential. He'd tap my shoulder whenever I folded inward. "Stand up straight, Claire. You're not a footnote. People listen more when you look like you believe yourself." At first, it sounded like something printed on a poster, but eventually, I started catching myself mid-hunch, pulling my shoulders back, borrowing confidence until it stopped feeling borrowed. Teachers noticed. I started speaking up, raising my hand. I even joined debate club after he bribed me with pizza. At my first competition, my voice shook so badly it echoed through the microphone. Still, I won, arguing that cats made better pets. When the judge announced it, I spotted Uncle Thomas in the back of the room, smiling quietly. The kind of smile that said, "See? I told you." At home, he wasn't just a caretaker. He was a collection of lessons disguised as ordinary days. He never lectured about ambition or gratitude. He lived those ideas instead. When I asked for a new phone, he said, "Sounds reasonable. How much have you saved?" I blinked. "Nothing." "Then you'll value it more once you earn it." So I got my first job bagging groceries. My first paycheck was $73.16, and I waved it like a trophy. He didn't take it. He drove me to the bank. "2 rules," he said. "Save half, spend half. That way you enjoy today without stealing from tomorrow." I rolled my eyes back then. Years later, I'd realized that sentence was the backbone of everything I built. Holidays used to fill me with dread. They felt like performances I'd never been cast in. At Uncle Thomas's house, they were quieter, smaller, but fuller in a way that mattered. His gifts weren't flashy, just thoughtful. A gently used copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, a fountain pen that felt solid in my hand, a scarf he claimed suited my debate face. Meanwhile, my phone kept lighting up with photos from elsewhere. Rachel posting acceptance letters and tagging everyone but me. Maya posing beside a new car, captioned, "Thanks, Mom and Dad." The sting was still there. It just didn't hollow me out anymore. It reminded me instead that I was learning what family looked like when it wasn't staged. One Christmas, he handed me a small box. Inside was a silver keychain, simple, engraved with a word: progress. I looked up, confused. "That's what we are," he said. "Both of us, still figuring it out." I didn't know what to say, so I hugged him. Awkwardly, like two people trying to remember a language they hadn't spoken in a long time. He didn't let go first. That night, I wrote in my journal, "You don't need shared blood to share a home." By 16, he started bringing me to his office during the summers. I was terrified. Everyone wore confidence like tailored clothing. Desks gleamed. Voices carried authority. During introductions, he leaned in and whispered, "Relax. Everyone here gets dressed one leg at a time. Some of them trip doing it." I laughed, and the fear loosened. "One leg at a time" became our shorthand whenever I felt small. He taught me things no classroom ever did. How to listen without rushing to respond. How to hear what people meant instead of what they said. How to shake a hand like you belonged in the room. "Half the world bluffs," he told me once. "The other half apologizes for breathing. Learn to do neither." That was the first time I believed survival wasn't the ceiling. At 17, the contrast between where I came from and where I stood felt sharp enough to hurt. Rachel's feed overflowed with milestones. Maya's life looked glossy and sponsored. One evening, Uncle Thomas set down his tea and said, without looking at me, "They don't check in, not even on your birthday." Then he asked, "How long do you plan to wait for them to remember you?" The question landed hard. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, I stopped waiting. Senior year, before prom, he handed me another small box. Inside was a thin silver bracelet engraved with a single letter. "C. Don't chase approval," he said. "Chase peace. Approval is borrowed. Peace is yours to keep." I told him he sounded like a fortune cookie. He laughed. "Then make sure you open it before it goes stale." That night, under two bright lights and a DJ who loved volume more than rhythm, I laughed without checking who noticed. No invisible leash, no note on a fridge. Just me. Claire Holloway. Unfinished, but real. Finally learning what it felt like to be seen. College had never been part of the plan my parents imagined for me. Rachel was the prodigy. Maya was the favorite. I was expected to be realistic. Family shorthand for don't hope too much. If not for Uncle Thomas, I might have stayed inside that limit forever. He didn't just offer tuition, he never paid my way forward. He made me earn every inch of it. Night after night, we sat at the kitchen table buried under paperwork. Financial aid guides, loan charts, dense spreadsheets that made my eyes ache. The numbers blurred until I had to stand just to reset my brain. "Scholarships first," Uncle Thomas said, tapping the table with his pen. "Grants next. I fill the gaps. I don't become the foundation." So I searched. There was a scholarship for left-handed students. I spent 2 weeks forcing my non-dominant hand to cooperate, my writing crooked and slow, my wrist burning by the end of each night. Another scholarship was for descendants of beekeepers. I wrote an essay about balance and responsibility in ecosystems, even though my only memory of a bee involved panic and a third-grade sprint. Bit by bit, I stitched together something that resembled a future. When the acceptance packet from Western Summit University arrived, Uncle Thomas examined it like a contract he'd personally negotiated. "Congratulations," he said, calm but unmistakably proud. His eyes told the rest. "Now go prove them right." Move-in day was chaos. Parents hauling boxes, balloons scraping ceilings, crying in hallways. Mine weren't there. No call, no message, not even a rushed good luck text. Uncle Thomas carried everything up 3 flights of stairs in the August heat, sweat darkening his shirt. Every time I reached for a heavy box, he waved me off. "This counts as my cardio for the year," he said. "Let's keep that between us." When the room was finally set, thrifted lamp, mismatched sheets, sharp bleach smell, I felt a tight pull in my chest. He noticed. "Don't look for them here," he said gently. "Look ahead. That's where you're going." I nodded because my throat had closed up. Before leaving, he handed me a small envelope. Inside was a note in his neat block handwriting. "If you ever doubt you belong, look in the mirror. You got here without them." I taped it inside my planner and kept it there all 4 years. The first months were rough. I felt like an intruder in every room, the girl with secondhand shoes and laundry bags that smelled like detergent instead of money. But Uncle Thomas called every Sunday, without fail. "So," he'd say, "still standing?" "Barely," I'd answer. "Good," he'd reply. "Pressure keeps you sharp." That rhythm anchored me. His voice had gravity. Sophomore year, I met Daniel Wright. He had a way of settling a room without trying. We met volunteering at a community garden. He was actually planting things. I was pretending I understood how a shovel worked. He offered to help. I rolled my eyes and let him. We moved slowly, carefully. Daniel never tried to rescue me. He respected me, which turned out to matter more than I expected. One night during finals, he asked, "Why do you double-check everything? Even the tiny details?" I hesitated, then said, "Because for a long time, I was the mistake no one bothered to fix." He didn't soften it with cliches. He took my hand instead. "Then let's make sure no one overlooks you again." That was the moment I knew he truly saw me, not as someone left behind, but as someone who'd built herself anyway. By junior year, an old pattern surfaced. Olivia Hart, Daniel's ex, drifted back into his orbit. Polished, charming, the kind of person who could turn regret into a performance. She started appearing at campus events, generous with compliments, her eyes always scanning for an audience. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Then, one night, she mentioned casually that Daniel had met her for coffee to help with a business idea. Later, I asked him directly. He didn't hesitate. "She reached out," he said. "Said she wanted advice. I didn't think it was a big deal." It shouldn't have been. But the old reflex flared anyway, that instinctive fear of being replaced. Uncle Thomas's words surfaced immediately. "Half the world bluffs. The other half apologizes for existing." Do neither. So I didn't accuse. I didn't plead. I said, "Next time, let her find someone else's generosity." Daniel nodded. No defensiveness. No argument. That quiet agreement told me more than any reassurance could have. By senior year, everything finally aligned, like a long-delayed sunrise. I earned my degree in civil engineering, the field Uncle Thomas once described as building what endures. He sat in the front row at graduation, clapping so loudly the dean actually paused. Afterward, he handed me a simple silver pen. "Use this to sign contracts you're proud of," he said. I smiled. "Not autographs?" He laughed. "Build first, brag later." That night, while others celebrated, I stayed in my dorm rereading the journal he'd given me years earlier. The pages were full now. Observations, small victories, gratitude written in uneven ink. One line stood out. "If it's in this house, it belongs to the people who live in it." The house wasn't a place anymore. It was my life. My mother pressed a designer tissue beneath her eyes, dabbing at tears that never quite appeared. My father folded his hands together, patient in the way people are when they expect something to be handed to them. Rachel's phone glowed under the table, her attention drifting. Maya leaned toward her and whispered, "Do you think he left us the house?" I sat across from them. The journal rested on my lap. A plain black dress. No jewelry worth mentioning. I didn't need armor anymore. Mr. Brooks cleared his throat. "We're here to review the last will and testament of Thomas Carlton," he said, voice neutral and exact. He moved through the formalities first. Outstanding obligations, charitable donations, small acknowledgments to longtime staff. My family shifted, impatience leaking through their practiced restraint. Then Mr. Brooks turned the page. "This section concerns the remainder of Mr. Carlton's estate." Rachel leaned forward, diamonds catching the light. Maya clasped her hands together, hopeful. My father glanced at me with a look that hovered between pity and warning. Mr. Brooks read slowly, each word landing with careful clarity. "To my estranged relatives, who remembered me only when my finances were convenient to them, I leave nothing." The silence split the room open. My mother gasped. Rachel's mouth fell open. Maya blinked, stunned. "He's joking," she whispered. "Right?" Mr. Brooks didn't pause. He turned the page. "To my niece, Claire Holloway, abandoned at 14, but never absent since. I leave the entirety of my estate. All properties, accounts, investments, and holdings." For one suspended moment, no one breathed. Then, as if pulled by the same string, all of them turned to look at me. Rachel spoke first, her voice sharp and shaking. "That's impossible! He barely even knew her!" I met her eyes evenly. "He knew me for 15 years, I said. "You just stopped paying attention." My father's face flushed red. "You manipulated him," he snapped. "You turned him against his family." I rested my hand on the journal, fingertips brushing the worn leather. "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourselves, the day you left me with a note on the refrigerator." Maya tried a softer approach, the voice she used when she wanted something. "Come on, Claire. You're not really going to keep everything, are you? We're family." That word again. I let out a slow breath and smiled, not cruelly, not smugly, just tired. "Funny," I said. 15 years of silence didn't feel much like family, but now there's money involved, and suddenly we're related again." Mr. Brooks closed the folder with a soft, final snap. "The will is legally sound," he said. "Mr. Carlton was extremely specific. Any attempt to contest it will be dismissed immediately." My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Disbelief hardened into anger. The same look they'd worn years ago when they realized I no longer needed their permission to exist. I stood, smoothing the front of my dress. "If you'll excuse me," I said calmly. "I have things to take care of. Mr. Brooks, thank you for your time." Rachel hissed. "This isn't over." I looked at her steadily. "It ended when you stopped calling me your sister." Then I turned and walked out. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner, like the world had finally exhaled. Sunlight bounced off the building's glass facade, blinding for a moment. And in that brightness, I saw myself clearly. Not the 14-year-old sitting on a porch with a backpack, waiting for someone who never came, but a woman standing on ground she chose. I pulled out my phone and opened the message thread I still wished existed. "Wish you were here to see their faces," I typed. After a pause, I added, "You were right. I wrote my own chapter. I sent it, to nowhere and everywhere." Later that week, I stood on the balcony of Thomas's house. My house now. The city lights shimmered below, pulsing like the heartbeat of everything he'd built and left behind. I opened the journal to its final page. The ink had faded slightly, but the words still burned. If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You already wrote your own chapter. I did, I whispered. And I'm not finished. I wasn't thinking about money, or property, or names on paper. I was thinking about a girl on a porch, clutching a backpack, staring at a fridge note, wondering what she'd done wrong. If I could reach back to her now, I'd tell her this. One day, you'll have a home that doesn't treat you like a visitor, a life that doesn't apologize for taking up space, a name no one overlooks. Daniel stepped onto the balcony and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. You okay? He asked. I rested against him and let out a slow breath. Yeah, I said. It finally feels finished. He watched the city for a moment. He'd be proud of you. I tilted my face up toward the open sky. I think he already knows. Below us, the lights moved and shifted, like a book still being written. And for the first time, the story was mine alone, fully claimed and not up for revision.